But this time, we're switching our focus a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that, the Hugh Wooding Law School, so often we accuse the think tanks of our system of not getting forward, of not moving forward, of not being part of the solution. Well, the Hugh Wooding Law School is trying to make a difference. The Voice campaign, the 21st Century Woman, they're changing things around. In case you're wondering what Voice is, well, we have this young man here who's part of the Hugh Wooding School and part of their human rights outreach program. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. The 21st Century Woman and that campaign, what is it about?
Well, my campaign is about Voice, not necessarily 21st Century Woman. 21st Century Woman is another project at the Hugh Wooding Law School. Voice is one project as well. There are three projects. Voice means violent occurrences I can eradicate. So what we're seeking to do is raise more awareness and to encourage the public to use their voice to speak up about domestic violence in society today.
Now, how did this campaign come about? What was the impetus for the students of Hugh Wooding to say, you know what, we want to move forward and do this?
Well, we looked at the International Human Rights Report for Trinidad and Tobago for the year ended 2015, and we found that one of the major human rights issues was violence against women. So we decided to frame our project around that so we could raise more awareness and to encourage the public to step up.
In terms of, because the fact that just last week we recognized on a Friday, we looked at the elimination of violence against women. How do you intend to do that?
Well, what we have done so far is we've released a mannequin challenge. Now, those who are not aware, the mannequin challenge is a video where persons are frozen in time. And it's a trend right now on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. So we decided to employ it and use it as a catalyst on Friday, International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women and Children. And we launched a video then to tell the story of domestic violence. And we'll be launching more videos incrementally, and we'll be publishing a graphic poster to put in public offices. So you'll see it in your maxis, clinics, hospitals, and so on, with information for victims who may be, for persons who may be victims of domestic violence and how they can help and how they can seek assistance.
You're talking about, is this a research-oriented project? What are you hoping to come out of this project?
We're hoping that persons in the public, everyone will realize that they have a duty to speak up. Everyone will realize that they have a duty, if someone is being abused, to speak up about it. Victims would realize and be more educated about what options are available to them. Those are the things that we're hoping to aim for with this project. We're hoping that we can all come together as a community and as a country to realize that this is an issue. We can say we're raising more awareness, but we are aware that it is an issue. The question is what are we doing about it? And that is what Voice aims to do. We aim to encourage persons to speak up and to put the information out there so that they can be equipped with the knowledge to speak up.
You're one of the students, obviously the potential lawyers of the future. Yeah. Is legislation enough at this point? Are we creating a protective environment for women and children?
I'm Guyanese, but I've examined the Trinidadian legislation, and what I've found is that I applaud the legislation for including financial and emotional abuse, because those are examples of domestic violence. However, I would find that I've done research with attorneys of law here in Trinidad and Tobago, and I've read an article by Mr. Kevin Ratiram, and he cited gaps in the legislation as it exists right now. And he said that it needs to be more modern, it needs to keep up with modern trends. And a particular issue is where it regards the breaches of a protection order. What if the abuser is well off, he can easily afford $9,000, then he can breach it whenever he wants then, and that's just the most. So there needs to be harsher penalties, and imprisonment should be the first penalty for breach of a protection order, because it's a serious issue. And situations where a protection order is granted, the legislation requests a pattern of behavior. But why does there need to be a pattern? Why can't it be on a one-off violent event that a protection order can be granted? So the legislation itself needs some fixing, but it's still good as it is.
The support of the school itself, what is the next phase of this project?
Well, the next phase is going to be launched on Saturday. We're going to launch a graphic poster. We'll be going around town in Port of Spain and St. Augustine. We'll be going to the clinics, hospitals, maxis, everywhere. And we'll print 300 posters to put up in these offices and so on. So the members of the public can actually see them. You never know who is a victim. You might be waiting in a waiting room, and the person next to you could be a victim, and they can read that poster and learn and know what options are available to them.
What is, in terms of the research that you've done, what is, we have all these discussions about why people stay, why they do, why they don't. It's a cultural issue. And you are part of the CARICOM culture, so you know in certain cultures, women are expected to be more subservient, and that is really just what is considered. It's tied into your religious views, it's tied into your familial views. How do you break that?
I think one thing that we've done a lot of interviews. I'm telling you that we have like 12 videos, and one of the interviews we did was with a psychologist, and he mentioned the same cultural and traditional impact, and the main strategy to eliminate that would be in the upbringing of our children, because I think that as parents we owe a duty to society to make sure that we raise our children with proper morals and values so that they can know how to respect women. And I think it comes from there, because most abusers tend to be victims of abuse or have seen abuse in their childhood, and we found that in parenting, we all owe a duty to our children to ensure that they grow up to be productive members of society, and we need to eliminate that thinking from them from a very young age.
You know, a lot of times people look at all of the talk about violence against women, and they believe that we have too much of this discussion, too many discussions about it, because enough is in place to protect women. What do you say to people who have that?
At first, we had the same thinking, because we were skeptical to go with this project. We were like, oh, it's been done, it's cliche, it's been talked about enough. But that's where we realized we needed to draw the line. It has been talked about enough, but we need to go out there and do more work. And that's why we took to the streets. We went to the public. We have public perception views. We have attorneys. We have magistrates. We have psychologists. We got all of the research done, because we think that it's not just about lawmakers anymore. It's not just about lawyers. They're not the only ones with this responsibility, nor police officers. It's all of us. The entire community owes a duty to protect against domestic violence and to prevent domestic violence. So everyone needs to step up, whether it's TV shows, hosts, radio stations, soca artists, everyone needs to find their voice.
Is it a prevalent problem in our country?
I would say yes.
And then on the flip side of this, some men believe that they are the victims, that there is what you consider psychological and emotional abuse. So men and women are culturalized differently. We're socialized differently, and men lash out, women use their mouth because we are physically not as strong. How then do you balance that to change, to create this dynamic of shift, and to the men who are the victims?
Well, I think that when it comes to like verbal abuse, as you say, women tend to lash out with words, men would lash out with their fists. And I think that the legislation does cater for both of those situations of abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological. It's all in there. And it's not as opposed to where it's disproportionate, where he would be physical and she would be verbal. It's still abuse at the end of the day, and they both carry the same weight. It's not one is treated better than the other, treated more heavier than the other. If that's the problem with the legislation too. It requires a pattern of behavior, but a one-off cuss out between a couple, that's sufficient to be a domestic violence case, and that's what we're trying to advocate.
And the reactions to your peers. You said even initially that you were hesitant to begin this as your project. Why was there this level of hesitation, and what changed your mind on it?
Well, there were we examined previous projects by the clinic, and it has been done. Domestic violence has been an issue that the clinic has addressed. But why we decided to move forward is because we thought that the way that they did it, we could take it a little further, and we can. Most projects tend to aim at what victims should do in situations, but not necessarily how to prevent the abuse from occurring in the first place. And all of those are what we address in our project. We shouldn't just focus on, a victim should do this, a victim should seek protection, or the victim. But we need to look at the abuser as well. Why is he doing this? Study that. Study what his upbringing was like. Study his childhood. And if we know the root cause of it, we can prevent it from ever happening.
Your closing comments, just for the benefit of our viewers, and I did get a question in from Twitter. What is the Hugh Clinic?
The Hugh Clinic, it's the Hugh Human Rights Clinic. It's one of the specialist clinics at school which encourage students to cultivate and exercise their advocacy skills so that we can raise more awareness about human rights issues in our society.
Now, I know that before we wrap this interview, we're going to share with you one of the videos that's done by this amazing class as they continue to address societal issues. So often we attack the think tanks in our society. We look at tertiary level institutions and we believe that they're not contributing more, that we're not having the thinkers and the shapers and the revolutionaries. And speaking about revolutionaries, as you know, over the weekend, the world said goodbye to the last of the revolutionary leaders, and that is Fidel Castro. And it's so easy to romanticize about him and his struggles and his journeys. But let's share with you what the Hugh Law School is doing.
Hi, I'm Olivia Mesa.
Hi, my name is Saeed Hamid.
Hi, I'm Hema Ramkissoon, and this is our project on Speak Out Domestic Violence.
And we're here in Woodford Square, Port of Spain, to get your views on domestic violence. So come follow me.
I would say domestic violence, it starts from small, right, where males are being abused, females are being abused, and they express it in time, in adulthood, to their spouses.
I'm Sandrine Raja. I'm the president of the International Women's Resource Network. We are currently doing some research to find out the primary reasons why women stay in those relationships. And it's really strange what we have found. Two of the main reasons that we have discovered so far is because of financial, I should say, because of that financial protection and also sex. Those are the two main reasons that we have unearthed so far as to why women remain. And what we are also urging the members of the public to do is to avoid making judgments on domestic violence without having information, because every situation is different. Every incident of domestic violence is different circumstances why the women remain in it.
Every situation is different. 10 seconds, your closing comments. Speak to our society, because this is not just a women's issue, it's a human rights issue. It's a violation of basic human rights. Your closing comments.
I would say that we need to respect each other's rights and we need to speak up. We all have a duty, whether you're a police officer, teacher, nurse, soca artist, whoever you are, you have a voice and you have to speak up against domestic violence, because it's an issue that affects men and women.
An issue that affects both men and women. Well, we take a quick break. Also, we have a bookworm segment at this time.